Okay, this year we're going to start something a little different. Teresa we're going to have a mindful moment with Teresa to start off our meeting. All right, Teresa.
Thank you, Lucille, and thanks everybody for giving this a try. We're just going to try it out, and you guys let Lucille and Karma know how you felt about it. All right. And this is I'm a mindfulness fellow with the Crim Fitness Foundation. I'm not in that department, but I'm doing this for my personal life. So as part of the program, I need to offer free teaching and free leading of meditations and mindfulness and things like that. This one is kind of a simple one to just have a mindful arrival and allow people to feel a little centered before the meeting. So please start by finding a posture that feels both relaxed and alert. You might want to have your feet on the floor, your hands on your thighs. You might want to keep your eyes open with a soft focus on one point on the floor in front of you. You can also close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Now, allow your spine to lift and your shoulders to relax if that's available to you. And again, you can close your eyes if you feel safe and comfortable to do that. If you don't, you can just slightly close your eyes or just look down. And begin by connecting your intention in doing this practice. And you may want to develop, your intention may be that you want to develop healthier ways to deal with stress. You may want to just be more focused today. Maybe your intention is to become a more skillful leader or to be the best for others. Or maybe you don't even have an intention today. Maybe you're just interested in learning more about what is mindfulness and how am I feeling today. Now we'll practice on focusing our attention. For this part of it, the idea is to settle your attention on an anchor point or an object of attention. A lot of times people pick some kind of a sensation or sensory, so you could focus on your breathing. You might want to focus on a sound, maybe the hum of the refrigerator or the traffic. Other people might want to use a sensation, maybe the feeling of the seat beneath them, maybe the feeling of their carpet or the floor. The only requirement is that this anchor should not be difficult for you. You should feel safe and you should feel comfortable. If you're using something other than your breath, you might want to choose something that's steady and it's constant, like a fan. So bring your attention to this focal point that you've chosen. If you're using your breathing, you might notice the movement of your abdomen or your chest. You might notice the sensation of air passing through by the tip of your nose, or you might have a sense of the whole body breathing. If you're using sound or a sensation or a feeling, you may notice the textures of the sound or the warmth or the pressure of the touch or maybe your couch cushions, depending on where you are. Whatever sensation is most vivid for you, just allow your attention to rest there. For the rest of the practice, we'll think of this sensation or this sound as a way to stabilize your attention. So, whenever you start to feel like your mind has wandered, just try to bring your focus back to that focal point. Can you be curious and kind with yourself, even as you bring your attention back to your focus point? If your attention starts to wander, as soon as you notice, just simply return your awareness to whatever it is that you decided to focus on today during this practice, and just be gentle, be kind. Everybody's minds wander. It's totally normal. thoughts coming and thoughts going. There's no need to push the thoughts away or chase after them. Just notice that they're there, accept them, and simply return back to focusing on your breathing, or maybe the hum of the fan, which probably you don't have a fan on because it's cold outside. So maybe your heater. And now we'll just sit here quietly for a few seconds or so, and just make sure that the right amount of attention is being settled on your breath or your sound or the sensation that you picked. Or you can just sit there and be aware of whatever arises for you, however you're feeling this morning. In these last few moments, just take a few more deep breaths. Try to make these the most intentional breaths that you might take today. And then gently open your eyes fully and return your awareness to this virtual space that we're in. You can move or stretch, do anything that kind of feels good to you this morning. And I just invite you to think, not so much as our practice is over, but just kind of think about what it might feel like to carry this idea and this feeling throughout the day, and finding a way to center yourself when you maybe are feeling a little stressed or uncomfortable. Yeah. And I just invite you to come back into the space and start our meeting. Thank you guys for letting me practice my mindfulness work. Um, this is a year, I think it's a 2 or 3 year long program, and I'm in the first year. The second and third year, I will be out in the community offering these kind of programs for free to people. It's part of what they are doing in the mindfulness team at the CRIM. So it's new for me. I'm doing it for personal reasons and as a resident of the area, but I also work there. So thanks for letting me practice it. And Lucille, you can take it back.
Okay, we have want to do neighborhood shout outs. So once you describe your neighborhood in one word, so I'll start. Committed. All right, Teresa.
I'd say my neighborhood is very quiet right now. So quiet is my word.
Okay, once you you want to call on someone?
Karma.
Considering we're in January, cold.
Okay, who would like to go next?
Off.
There you go.
Annie, noisy.
Jerry, my neighborhood is also quiet.
You want to call on somebody, Jerry?
Good morning, Regina Broomfield. My neighborhood is calm at the moment.
Okay.
My neighborhood is peaceful.
And who are you? Introduce yourself. I'm sorry.
This is Elfrida Harris. Our neighborhood is peaceful.
It's Kay Schwartz. My neighborhood, the Flint Cultural Center, is under construction. I can't do it in one word. Under construction.
Okay. Jim or Jane or Jim?
Complex.
Cool. Cheryl?
I'm thinking of the members of the neighborhood association, and the word that I associate with them is the word grit.
Grit, okay. Billy?
Okay, my neighborhood, I stay in Ballinger Square, so I would say we are very dedicated.
State senator on.
Okay. Anyone else wants to go next?
This is Barb. I guess our neighborhood right now is calm.
Anyone else wants to do a neighborhood shout out?
I will. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Kathleen. I live downtown Flint and resilient. And I only say that because I know the restaurants are struggling. So they're doing all that they can.
Okay. Talia, you want to describe your neighborhood in one word? Okay. Okay, she's still muted. Anyone else would like to go?
Sorry,
Oh, there you go.
I turned on my video, not my. I said nostalgic, or that's I feel nostalgic.
Okay. All right. I think we had another person that wanted to describe their neighborhood.
I'll jump in and just say concerned.
Okay. All
This,
right.
this is Netra, and I'm going to say that our neighborhood is resilient as well. We're still here, so I would say we're resilient.
Okay. All right.
Tanya, are you raising your hand there?
Yes, I am. And good morning, everyone. My neighborhood is in need of attention, but there's a lot of love here, though.
Okay.
And then just for we had a couple people just join us a little bit late. So I just wanted to remind the folks who are just now joining, we did ground rules right before you guys got on. And just want to let you know that we are recording today. And if you don't want to be recorded, please turn off your camera. And you can send a message in chat if you have a question or don't want to speak on camera. That's totally fine. Or you can just raise your hand like Tanya did if you have a question. And then if you see that I put you on mute, or Karma does, she's co-hosting with me on the technology. That's just so that we can manage any background noise so that people can be heard better.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. All right, so anyone else for the neighborhood shout out? Okay, so I'm sure you've noticed there's a little difference in our agenda. So we want to start with our neighborhood group updates. Want to share your success, upcoming events, programs, and what you need, and anything else you would like to share. So Miss Jerry, do you want to start? Jerry Clark?
Sure, thank you. Good morning, everybody. The successes that we did have was that, we work with the Clean and Green. We were able to employ at least 5 of the youth and a few of our adults. And we're just looking forward to doing that again. And one of the successes I made this morning was another connection in employing the youth with Miss Connie this morning. I love this platform because you can be able to express your needs, and you never know who's out there listening, and be able to make the connection. So thank you, FNU. And I saw one of the things where it said what you needed. We haven't actually been able to meet with our monthly meetings. Of course, we meet at Rosewood Manor, and they have actually closed that down. But we did have, at Christmas time, we gave out care packages to all the residents at Rosewood. They were pretty excited about getting that and surprised. But one of the things that we do need, since I have such an older population, is to be able to get them acclimated, with the Zoom calls and how to use their cell phones so we could be able to have meetings. So any suggestions? See me. Thank you.
See, Karma had her hand up. I thought I saw
Yeah.
Zoom one recently.
VAAA, Valley Area Agency on Aging. they have a program where they're teaching seniors.
Oh, okay, good,
So
yeah.
reach out to them.
Okay.
I know Deborah Morgan works over there.
Okay,
So
okay.
ask for her. Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Before I forget about it, oh, Karma, how is our senator? Kildee.
Our Rep Kildee,
I'm sorry,
doing
Rep.
great.
You know what? I get my foot in my mouth all the time. Calling him
Okay.
that.
Actually,
I'm
he
sorry.
kind of
that's
wanted
taking me off.
to be here today,
Mhm.
but with everything that's going on, it was very difficult. And because we had a agenda, I knew if he came in today, that would have just been blown out the water. So
Okay.
he will be coming. It's quite possible that it could be the next meeting, but don't repeat that
Right,
because
right,
it's
right.
not on his calendar. Okay,
Yeah.
but he will be here soon to share.
Well, I
Definitely.
just had some concerns, I'm sure we all did, but good to
He's
know
safe.
he's safe. Yeah. Thank
He's
you.
safe. He's traumatized. He was traumatized.
Yeah,
But
jeez.
safe.
Wow. Okay.
Thanks for
Thank
asking.
you.
Okay.
Okay. Miss Tanya, you raising your hand? Okay. All right. Anyone from the Traffic Taming Task Force that would like to share some updates?
I don't see Kate on the call, so I'll do an update for her. This is Teresa, and I'm putting my crim hat on for this piece. So I put my little crim hat on. I have Blue Mile on it. So the Traffic Taming Task Force, let me make sure somebody's in the chat, see if I don't. Okay, no. So for the Traffic Taming Task Force, they've been working really hard to slow traffic and getting the speed radar signs in multiple neighborhoods. We have 2 signs now, and we're rotating it through some different neighborhoods. Kate has that schedule. I'm not sure which neighborhood they're in right this moment. That's more of a Kate update, but we are working on getting that group a Facebook page. So that is up and running. The Crims Tech team is helping with populating it right now. But we are going to be looking for like an intern or a volunteer or somebody to take that over. But for probably a month or so, we'll have the Crims Tech person get it all updated and that kind of thing. So if you know any students or any volunteers, anybody who's really good with social media and stuff who wants to get involved in neighborhood group work, that group is looking for somebody to help them with the social media. So that's all I've got till they have their next meeting.
Okay.
I wanted to
Thanks,
jump in real
Teresa.
quick, Teresa. I know one of the signs is on Miller Road westbound. And I was driving by I think like last night or the night before. I can't remember which one it was. It's difficult to remember these things. But I noticed that the sign was not working. So I'm guessing that the batteries probably need to be changed. So if anyone wants to contact Kate and let her know that, that would be kind of helpful too, I suppose.
I'll email her today. And the other kind of cool thing, and I see Cheryl, your hand is up too. So I'll unmute you here. The other thing, I think I did this before. This was in between meetings for this group. I went to city council and spoke on behalf of the group and read some talking points that Kate gave to me and asked me to share with the council. I was on the meeting call for a very long time in order to speak for a short amount of time. But that's kind of like what our role is as an agency with that group, is to, if residents are not able to sit through a 5-hour city council meeting, then, the resident leader of the group wrote up the talking points and then asked me to do that as my role in serving the group. So if you guys are interested in joining that group, just shoot us an email and I'll make sure that gets to Kate. She's the kind of the person that manages that group and make sure everybody's together. And then Neighborhood Engagement Hub and CRIM and Flint Neighborhoods United kind of help bring it all together, I guess would be a good way to say it. But Cheryl, you had your hand up? Did you want to say something?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that our neighborhood is working on. We've not been meeting because our population is small and highly at risk. However, we've been working independently on our sign removal program, which simply requires, as we drive throughout our neighborhood, picking up and taking down all the illegally posted signs. We buy houses and those kinds of things. Mostly they're in park strips and on telephone poles. And at some intersections, there may be as many as 10 or 20. So it really improves the appearance of the commercial part of our neighborhood and even the residential part. The other thing I'd like to do is to thank street maintenance for their help taking away dumped materials at behind Zimmerman School, including a couple of boats. And when we called on them after we picked up and bagged 50 bags of trash and yard waste at an empty lot, they swept in and made those things go away. So it was really helpful to have those extra hands, and we're grateful. So that's pretty much it right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Teddy Robertson, you had your hand up?
Yes, Lucille, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm off topic now. I'm back at the traffic taming task force. I live in Mott Park, and I'm a member of the task force, and my understanding was that sometime in January, Mott Park will have one of the remote radar signs, and it would be on Doherty Place somewhere. I'm not sure of the exact spot. So that's as much as I know, and I just wanted to add that to Teresa's report from the task force. I know that the task force will have a meeting in February. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
And Cheryl has her hand up again. I don't know. Yeah.
Cheryl?
I thought I lowered my hand. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
Lucille, it's Jane, and I can't hit the thing that raises my hand. So,
okay.
The mural that has been developed through Keep Genesee County Beautiful and Flint Public Arts and King Avenue Plus is a wonderful February Black History Month. Perhaps you'd want to use it as a way to get people to think of what we know of that time and how it impacts today. It's really powerful and wonderfully done. And there will be 6 more murals in the King Avenue Business District. The mural is just south of Pasadena on the west side of King at Dewey.
And for those old schoolers, the old Gilroys.
Yes, the old Gilroys. It's definitely an improvement on the old Gilroy's sadness that was there. Kevin Burdick was a wonderful artist and really, really listened to the neighborhood. If you have an opportunity to do a mural with Flint Public Arts, he's a great study in and looks for the history of what you're talking about and listens to your dreams.
Okay. Thanks for sharing, Jane.
Can I add to that? This is Connie.
Oh, you were next on my list, Miss Connie. Go ahead.
Also, I just heard briefly, I caught the tail end on the broadcast 1420 that they will be out in front of the mural on King Avenue sometime this week to honor the physician at Hamilton Clinic. And there's going to be many other dignitaries there, but I didn't catch all the information. So they're using the mural as a background drop to honor some people here in Flint. And I didn't get the date and the time, but Neely just announced that about 20 minutes ago.
Okay. All right. Did you have anything else that you needed to share, or just that?
Also, I spoke to Kate regarding getting one of the taming signs on DuPont Street due to the high volume of car accidents. So we're going to be looking at putting one up possibly in the spring between DuPont Street along the north and south area of Pasadena all the way down to Welch.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Kathleen Gazelle, do you have anything to share for the downtown neighborhood? Kitty? All right. Billy Dantzler from Ballinger Square.
Those who wanted to get rid of the Mayor Weaver.
No,
Well, you got rid of Mayor Weaver, and you got the
Okay, someone has music.
Yeah, that was Billy.
Okay.
Billy, I don't know if you're in two meetings.
Yeah, no, sorry, I couldn't find my mute. No, I don't have anything to announce for my block club. Thank you.
Okay. Barbara Hollenbeck, did you have anything to share from your neighborhood?
We haven't been meeting for the winter months, but we have been meeting by Zoom on a regular basis. So we are getting together, just not in person. Our next neighborhood meeting will be in February. So things are quiet.
Okay. How about Regina? Did you have anything to share?
Yes, good morning again. Just that the college classes will be starting on Monday. So if there are any individuals interested in taking classes for the winter, I'll put my contact number and then you can pass that on. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Elfrida Harris, did you have anything you want to share from your neighborhood?
No, I don't have anything to report.
Netzara? Do you have anything to share for your neighborhood?
I would just say for our neighborhood, we've just been connecting via texting, and a lot of it's centered around warm and fuzzy type things, whether it be letting each other know of food giveaways. I think there's going to be a Coke giveaway on next Thursday at Freedom Center church located on the corner of Pasadena and DuPont. So just kind of letting people know about things of that sort is what we've been doing.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Anyone else need to have anything to share with about their neighborhood?
One more thing, Connie.
Yes, ma'am.
I live on McClellan and DuPont, and I noticed a couple of things on Facebook the other day. Somebody had mentioned the same thing that I experienced last Wednesday, I believe it was. There's a gentleman in a late model car, black Equinox. He's driving around in the neighborhood. He catches someone that's either going in their home or coming out of their car, and he's pulling right up to them and asking them for money. He states that he just lost an uncle by the name of Joe Coleman. and says he needs money to get to Ann Arbor. And he stays there and watch you for about maybe 10 minutes. And then he moves on and drives around in the neighborhood. So I was one of the person that experienced this Wednesday. And then I saw it again on Facebook, a lady warning to beware of the black man in the black Equinox. A late model, could have been a 2018, 2019, and it's nice and clean. So ladies, be aware.
Thank you.
Can I jump in here for a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Based on Connie Edwards, we have 2 troopers here.
Okay.
One of them is his first time, Jeffrey Short, Trooper Short. And I know I'm saying that wrong. I think he's Lieutenant Short. But can you kind of tell her what needs to happen when dealing with a situation like that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Jeff Short, by the way, I'm the Assistant Post Commander at the Flint State Police Post. So thank you for letting me join with you guys today. Yeah, in that case, obviously we want to get it reported because we're not sure what the intentions would be, correct? Yeah. So the best thing you can do is definitely document what your concerns are or any information about that individual that you can. I wouldn't be confrontational with that individual whatsoever and recommend anybody in your neighborhood, to not be confrontational, of course, but to gather that information that you can, vehicle description, which you got a good vehicle description, maybe a description of that individual, what is being said. Certainly in this case, it appears that he's, obviously trying to get money. We're not sure what other intentions could be included with that, scoping things out, trying to look at people's homes and that sort of thing. So in a nutshell, it's to gather that information the best that you can and then get that relayed. You can certainly relay that to Central Dispatch. We all know it's not a hidden secret that depending on the volume of things, some of the officers in the area may or may not be able to get on it right away. And I think we all understand that portion of it. But I recommend to you, there's Trooper Stephen Kramer's on the call today, our community service trooper. You're more than welcome to reach out to him, whether it's via phone or email, if you're not getting your concerns addressed on the street level like you should be. Definitely reach out to him, or you're welcome to reach out directly to me. And I can even put something on the chat here with my information so you're able to get with me. And I say that to say this, I oversee the state police operations that occur in the city of Flint directly. That's what I directly supervise and oversee. So if there's information, and this goes for this whole call, right? Everything that we're here for today. If people have concerns or things that maybe aren't being addressed that they believe should be, you're more than welcome. And I encourage you to reach out to me and let me know what those concerns are so I can address those issues and maybe direct some resources if they're not happening the way they should be.
All right, thank you. All right, before we close the section of neighborhood updates, any other updates before we move on?
Ms. Lucille, I just wanted to say that, Ms. Connie, I understand what you're going through because I had a gentleman pull up in my driveway in a pickup truck. So I just don't want us to just be looking for a black truck. I think they're driving around in individual different vehicles. So it might be, of course, if I had a pickup truck and you had an SUV, then it's multiple vehicles. So we just need to be alert. He pulled up and he started talking to my children. Luckily, they put him on camera, so he immediately left. So thanks for bringing that to our attention, Ms. Edwards.
Thank you.
And that was Billy. And I just want to say, yeah, thank you, Ms. Edwards, for bringing that up, because this is Teresa, with like human trafficking and stuff being such a major concern in our community, that really, I don't know, that's something that really worries me as well. So.
Okay. All right. If there's no additional individuals to share, we'll start on the section with the agency. We have someone from Metro Community Development. Do you have anything to share? Okay. Are they on?
I don't see anybody. I don't know if Kay is still here though from the library. No, I don't think she is.
Okay, it's not on?
No.
Okay. Did you want to share her update, Teresa?
I don't have any major updates. Crim Fitness Foundation, we were closed for a little while for the holiday. I mean, obviously our offices are not open to the public right now. We're just doing our thing, still trying to serve the schools and the communities and doing a lot of things virtual. Yeah, I don't have a ton of updates right now. We're just still trying to get everything moving. So.
All right. Thanks, Teresa. Okay, I found update from Kay. She sent a message just in case she was not going to be on the call. Hi all, I have another meeting and I will be leaving soon. But I want everyone to know the Flint Public Library at Cortland Center is open for lobby service. So you could put things on hold and pick them up or browse for materials in the lobby. And in a couple of weeks, we'll be looking at the COVID numbers to see if we can open further. Our digital downloads are available 24/7 with your library card and PIN. Okay. All right, Chief Ray. Did you have anything to share? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Just that back in November we had seen a spark with the arsons and those things, but we did start working more with the state arson investigators, and they're giving us a little better response. They did receive money, dollars from the ATF that in the future they will be stationing a state investigator here in the city of Flint. Is just going through all the paperwork and getting everything secured. They had already received the funds. It's just the state accepting it, putting those things in place. We're currently in the process of hiring 8 firefighters. We've been doing interviews. I'm doing my last interviews next week, and we'll be making a selection so we can maintain our manpower. And so that's pretty much all I have. But like I say, the mayor is consistent on making public safety a priority. So we're going to try to maintain, keep all our stations open and do as much as we can to protect the citizens.
All right, thank you. All right, checking to see if there's any message. Anyone from the city of Flint have anything to share? Cheryl, you had a question? Cheryl?
I wanted to ask the chief if he had any comment on the fire on Corona Road in the abandoned commercial building.
Chief Ray?
What was that?
I was curious if you had any information about the fire on Corona Road in the abandoned commercial building in terms of whether that was an arson
Go ahead.
concern.
What it is, a lot of fires are looked at arson, but what happened back during when the emergency managers came in and you had Chief Cox and Chief Tolbert in position, the state determined that they weren't reporting arsons according to what the fires and when they would get fire report. And so the state actually taking it over. So we as the Flint Fire Department, we can only label them as suspicious and contact arson. However, when we have that much damage with buildings such as that is so much fire that usually the arsons they'll come down and they'll bring their dogs and they can sniff it. But if they don't pick up anything, it's still labeled suspicious. But for the most part, we are about 90% sure they're arsons. But it's just the arson is one of the hardest crimes to report, because without a witness and certain things, it's kind of fire tend to destroy all the evidence.
Thank you, Chief Ray.
All right, thank you. Lynn Williams, from the Community Foundation. Do you have anything you want to share?
Sure, I was putting it in the chat. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we've got a couple of podcasts coming up. The first one, January 12th at 1 o'clock, which on Facebook Live, which will talk about the 5-year anniversary since we got the Flint Kids Fund. That's the dollars that came in from all across the country and the world, really, for to fund programs and services related to the children and families impacted by the Flint water crisis. So this will talk about what has been done to date. And then on Tuesday, January 19th, we're hosting a podcast on the National Day of Racial Healing, which will talk about the activities and the updates on what has been happening with the COVID-19 Task Force on Racial Inequities that's been in existence since March. And then on January 14th, and I've got to find the date, there will be a grant information session webinar that talks about our upcoming grant schedule for the year and priorities. And I can't tell whether or not that is on Facebook Live, but I think Chris sent that information out once, and maybe he can send it out again to the whole group. But those are things coming up from Community Foundation.
All right, thank you.
And Lynn, if you could send that to me again, I know I have it. It's just probably buried on my computer file. So you can send that to me again. I'll make sure it gets back out.
Okay, will do. All right.
Okay, Crime Stoppers, do you have anything to share?
Good morning, everyone. Not necessarily, except I suppose if you have any meetings that you would like us to attend, let me know. And we'd love to, we're trying to show up to everything we can, you know, just frustrated as with everyone else, wanting to be there out with everyone and see everyone. We're processing tips as usual. This month is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So we've got a lot going on with that, with the Human Trafficking Task Force throughout the county. And one of the videos that we just put out, well, it's an older video, but it just reiterates that we take tips on every type of crime. So it doesn't have to be just homicides or felony fugitives. We will process tips on all types of crime. And if it's a misdemeanor, we just don't pay warrants on it. We don't pay a reward on it, but we would still get it to law enforcement. So I have to tell people that all the time, even the media, just constantly let everybody know that we will process all tips. Just some of them aren't eligible for a reward. So because some people want to stay anonymous. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, Cheryl, you had a question, or you're on mute?
I was happy to see the yard sign at one of our local dumping sites for the program with Crime Stoppers in the city, with the number to call because of dumping in that particular location. And I realize that it's going to be easy for the bad guys to pull that sign out, but some of the neighbors have the opportunity to record that information. So I think it increases the likelihood that the reporting will take place. And that will not be one of the signs that we tear down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Julie, did you have anything else, or is that?
No, I'm all set. Thanks. Good to see
Okay.
everyone.
All right. Nancy Edwards from Keep Genesee County Beautiful. Do you have anything? I believe you had something to share.
I do. I have a list. Good morning. Just a quick update on playground and park improvements. All right. Hope I don't forget anything. McCallum Park has got a new playground. Durant Park is getting a new playground. We're adding playground equipment for the 2 to 5 year old groups, kids at Mott Park. Hardenbrook is getting a new playground. Ophelia Bonner Park is getting a new playground. Riverside West is getting a new playground. We're adding some equipment at Fleming Park. We're adding new benches, player benches at Hasselbring because some of those were damaged. And Kersley Park is getting a new playground. So I think that's all the playground work for this current grant year. Some of this is funded through our Ruth Mott Foundation grant. Some is funded through the Flint Kids Fund. Thank you, Community Foundation. Can't remember where all the rest of the funding is. I still have vacation brain, sorry. So anyways, there's a lot of playground work that's happening, and that's just on the current grant, and then we'll take a look at what next year is gonna, what we still need to do for next year, once we find out whether or not we've been funded again through the Ruth Mott Foundation and any other grants that I'm able to come up with. In terms of grants, Jane mentioned the mural on MLK. That was a grant from Keep America Beautiful. Based on what happened with that first mural, Keep America Beautiful reached out to me and offered us an extra $15,000. Yeah, which is being used to fund the 6 additional murals that Jane mentioned. And so we're working with the Flint Public Art Project. They are incredibly impressed with the mural, the neighborhood collaboration, the work that we do in Flint, literally, and who contacts me and wants to give me money. Like that is almost unheard of, but we're really excited by that. I'm still just waiting for the final paperwork from them, and then it'll get through our system and we'll have everything in place for the spring. I know I'm forgetting a lot of stuff, but that's just a quick update on kind of where we are at this moment in time.
Thank you. There's a lot going on. All right.
Yeah.
Netra Hughes, I believe you had something you wanted to share. Is she on mute?
I'm not sure. Did I have a hand up or something, or?
I just got a message that you had something to share.
I just posted the information from Freedom Temple Church having a new coat giveaway on Thursday. I'm not sure if that's what they were talking about, but I had already shared it. It's going to be on Thursday the 14th, starting at 9. There'll be new coats for children and adults being given away.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so she put that information in the chat. So, all right. Do we have anyone else, agency or neighborhood that have anything to share? Land Bank, do you have anything to share? Okay.
Somebody from Land Bank does. I saw Cheryl's hand up. I didn't know if you had a question for somebody.
I have a question. Obviously, I'm highly confused.
You went mute again, Cheryl.
Cheryl, we can't.
Cheryl, you're on mute.
I'm trying to. I've hit the ask to unmute button. Cheryl, did you not want to? I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I wanted to ask Nancy about the upcoming meeting about the Parks and Recs Department for the city of Flint. What was the, what process are we, or what stage in the process are we for that meeting that's coming up, I think later this month?
Not sure what meeting you're talking about, Cheryl.
It was announced, oh, I don't have the paper. It was announced in the Journal. On the announcements page, governmental announcements page, I'm gonna say either yesterday or the day before. And it had to do with updating something about the Parks and Rec Department. So I will try to retrieve that information and give you a call, Nancy, and be more specific. It just
Okay,
came to
yeah, if you could send me that. I'm not aware of anything, but I'm also still I'm out of state, and so
Okay.
I'm not seeing all the information that might be available.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Just a quick update. I guess I can just do a this update on the land bank. We had our State of the Land Bank Facebook Live event on December 17th. We're getting ready to re-release the video, so just keep pay attention to our Facebook page. We'll have that out again. And so thank everyone who was able to participate and to attend and watch the event. So you can find it on our YouTube page, and we'll also have re-release and have on our YouTube page and on Facebook this coming week. All right, Karma.
Okay, lately, well, over this past year, a lot has happened. And I know for myself, I have definitely been struggling. In the beginning, as soon as COVID hit back in March, my mom went into the hospital. And when I was told that I couldn't go see her, I couldn't go with her, I fell apart. I completely lost it, because in the past, whenever my mom goes into the hospital, I go into the hospital. I'm right there with her. And that was the beginning of crap for myself. I didn't start to feel better until she was released. Now, as you all know, different things just kept happening before I was able to recover. So a lot of the stuff that continues to happen continues to hit me like a ton of bricks. And I have to do things in order to continue to do this work that I do in community. I have to, at times, stop and do things that will make myself feel better. Like, for instance, starting off with the mindfulness from Teresa. Thank you, I appreciate that. Every now and then, I'll get a text or a message from her. You know, she's looking out for me. Other people in the community have been looking out for each other, and that is so appreciated. A few years ago, before I started doing this work, I knew that I needed some help. I could not continue to put all of my issues on family and friends to talk me through what I was dealing with. So I needed some help. I needed some professional help. So I sought out therapy. Those things that I learned from therapy is what I'm using now to get through. Things like watching Looney Tunes. I love cartoons because that was comforting to me when I was a kid. So, hey, that's what I use. So there's different things that we can use, but we don't know what's going to work for us. And we have an organization here in Flint, and I'm going to share something with you. During the water crisis, when I was out there doing all of that work, it was hard as hell. I'll keep it real with you guys because you are my people. So what I did was I made friends with people from GHS, and they helped me get through that. I love that. And that's my phone. My phone says it did not understand. That's okay. It's not for you to understand. So what I did was I had different people in our community, you know, talking about different things that they're dealing with. So I figure, hey, I'm going to reach out to GHS and see if they'll come. So now I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Bruder. Are you, there you go.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. That was a really awesome introduction, Karma. Thank you for being transparent about your challenges, because I think that's part of that normalization that we all have it. Mental health is here and it's going to impact all of us, just like physical health is. And so if we acknowledge it, then that's the beginning of moving forward. So I'm going to share my screen if it'll let me. Yeah, perfect. And put on a presentation here. And I did email this so that you guys could see it as well. All right, it's gonna look like I'm not looking at you while we're talking about it. It's on two screens. All right, can everyone see the PowerPoint presentation? Okay, perfect. So just to give you a little background, like she said, my name is Lisa Bruder. I'm the manager of education at Genesee Health System. And GHS has always had a keen awareness to those in our community that struggle with the severe spectrum of a mental illness or a developmental disability. And when we were all impacted by Flint water crisis, GHS kind of took a different role and realized that there is this concern of our community that has a mental illness, but also how much our entire community is impacted by the trauma connected to Flint water crisis. And so we began to reach out for new people and part of the community that we hadn't seen before, just to say, we're here, we support you. And we're going to continue to do that through COVID, saying that we understand it would be impossible to live through COVID and not be impacted in some way by stress or grief. There's been so much loss and so much unknown. And so kind of recognizing the two tiers, we need to tend to our community that has an existing mental health condition, but also for the rest of the community, acknowledging that it's normal to be stressed, to be scared, to be searching for some new techniques in order to feel well, and really reaching out for each other as a community, knowing who your resources are, all that good stuff. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about mental health and wellness, and we're going to talk about common signs and symptoms because we all need to be able to recognize those within ourselves. Usually we say there's this spectrum of feelings. Say we're feeling anxious. Everyone feels anxious. And so we have to be able to draw this line of, yes, this is traditional anxiety. It's normative. It's okay. And or we've crossed that line where this anxiety is potentially becoming something more. It's really impacting your life. And so we're going to talk about common signs and symptoms so that you for yourself and for those around you, you'll be able to draw that line and say, I think you're really struggling with something much more profound than just feeling anxiety. So we will talk about suicide and crisis. For our community, we've had a horrifying spike in suicide over the last year. And we know that is compounded with all the complex trauma of water crisis and COVID and having available resources. And so we are unrolling lots of new services and education pieces that I'll talk about in a little bit that you guys can get involved in with suicide and crisis. We'll talk about how to help someone need, and of course, the importance of self-care, like Karma was talking about. If we can't take care of ourselves, we are no good to our neighbors and our communities and our jobs and our families. And so really recognizing that, you know, when the oxygen mask falls from the ceiling in the airplane, you are to put your own on first. And this is one of those situations. This is a crisis situation. So we're going to talk about stigma for a second, which I think is the most important piece when we talk about mental health, because we still live in a time of life where it's hard to talk about mental health. We label mental health with things like crazy or cuckoo, or we say she's bipolar, or they're cuckoo, all these things. And so being able to normalize it and say we all have mental health, and just like physical health, there is a spectrum of wellness and unwellness, but it's not something that we need to be ashamed of. So the little caveat at the bottom of the screen there is just that a person with a mental health disorder is more likely to be the victim of a crime than a perpetrator. And when we teach mental health first aid to community members, we say that a lot, like, what is so scary about someone that you maybe see on the streets that is having a conversation with themselves or potentially looks like they're homeless or unwell. And it's that unpredictability. But knowing that even though they're unpredictable, they're not likely to cause any harm to you, they're more likely to be a victim, sometimes helps with that normalization and reduction in stigma. So where does stigma come from? And you guys can turn your mic off and shout out if you have an idea. Where does stigma come from?
Society.
Society, yeah.
Family.
Not knowing, ignorance.
Yeah, not knowing, being afraid, perhaps. What about in different cultures? Does stigma live differently in different cultures?
Generational stigmas, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely generational. So if we all went to our grandmas and grandpas and talked about mental health, that might be very uncomfortable for them. But for the community of young people, it's so much more normalized, and it's beautiful that they're doing mindfulness, meditation, yoga, they're talking about feelings. So we have seen this progression, but knowing that stigma for the older population, definitely. What about stigma in the African-American community? I saw a couple faces of, yeah.
And
That's hard.
gender, like men sometimes are told not to talk about their feelings.
Absolutely. It's hard for people to allow men to have feelings. It's hard for men to allow themselves to have feelings, that we have societally kind of drawn this wall where we're like, yeah, no, that's not for them. They're not going to have feelings. We need them to be strong, and the women will feel. Whereas again, mental health is going to touch everyone. So why is stigma harmful? Because it stops people from getting help, right? It stops people from saying to their family or their community or their doctor, I don't feel good right now, or I've been feeling really down, because that stigma says they're going to think you're crazy. Maybe they're going to lock you up in an institution, or they're going to tell you just to get over it. So what's the point? So that stigma fuels that fear of moving forward. And of course, what can we do to change the perception of it? That's what we're doing today. We're saying, hey, there's this thing, it's called mental health, and we all need to be aware of it. And that's part of changing the perception, is just being aware and attuned to yourself and to people around you. So this is US adults with a mental disorder in any 1 year. So we have anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, substance use disorders, bipolar, eating disorders, and schizophrenia. So I always say with this slide, I'm a social worker, so math is not my strong suit, but I will say that I do know that all those numbers do not add up to 19.6, right? And that's because often, incredibly often, people have more than one mental illness. That's called a co-occurring disorder. And so the risk of not attending to a mental health concern is that it can evolve into something else. Thinking about how we feel when we're anxious. If we're feeling isolated and anxious, like we can't reach out, that's likely to cause some depressive feelings of, I'm alone, no one else will understand me, I can't tell this to someone else. And same with depression. If we're feeling that darkness of depression and we're unable to reach out, it becomes anxiety provoking. And so we look at all of these as not just he has this or she has that, of we all have feelings that are connected to these. And if we don't tend to them, they could proceed into the point where we're unwell, where it becomes a diagnosable mental illness. So we know that the impact of mental illness is incredibly profound. And you know, the difference for a lot of people is that if I were in a car accident and say I broke my legs, or even worse, my family, my community, my neighborhood, my work, they would bring me cards and flowers and casseroles and great support system of people. But if I had schizophrenia, that would likely not be the case. People kind of compartmentalize, oh, she broke her leg, she needs our help, we're going to bring a casserole, versus she has schizophrenia, we'll let her family handle that. You know, we'll let her, that's her private business. Whereas I need that same support. I need that same community rallying around me saying that I accept you and we want to help you become well. And so the disability of moderate depression has been compared to the intensity of relapsing MS, severe asthma, or chronic Hep B. And so we kind of make this span of like, these things are the worst. We have quadriplegia or multiple sclerosis, things that are very painful. And then we put mental health at the other end of the spectrum, when really they're equally as disabling. And so the disability of severe depression is compared to quadriplegia. You ever heard someone say when they have depression, my body was like lead, I couldn't get out of the bed? It feels very comparative, that inability to move or seek wellness for yourself. And so we are going to define disability today as the amount of disruption in 3 areas of your life: in work, in daily activities, and satisfying relationships. So live, love, and laugh. If your challenges of anxiety or depression or isolation are beginning to impact your ability to live, love, and laugh, that's when we say, something isn't right here, and I deserve better, and I want to seek further for wellness. So not just feelings, we all have feelings, especially now, that line of this is getting to be a little too much. So the most common disorders that we see in our community are anxiety disorders, depression, substance use disorders, bipolar, eating disorders, and schizophrenia. Are there any other mental health issues that you can think of that maybe don't fit into these categories? What about post-traumatic stress disorder? And what is our community experiencing with this complex trauma? This is compounded, complex trauma. We had not healed. The water crisis is not over. It's still here. And then here comes COVID. And that weight of the complex trauma can cause post-traumatic stress disorder. And we have to acknowledge that we have been through so much. If we're like, I feel anxious, everybody feels anxious, I just need to get over it. Or could it be, I feel anxious and my life has been a roller coaster for 5 years and I can't find wellness, I just can't get myself to the top. That's the line that we need to draw. So anxiety disorders do break down into other categories: generalized, specific phobias, which is the most common, social anxiety, post-traumatic, obsessive compulsive, agoraphobia, and panic disorder. And let's talk about some signs and symptoms of anxiety. So to say, oh, I'm feeling anxious is profoundly different than to look at anxiety as a whole. So these are symptoms of anxiety, which is huge. So we have a mental health illness that causes pounding heart, chest pain, rapid heartbeat, blushing, fast breathing, shortness of breath, dizziness, headache, sweating, tingling, numbness, choking, dry mouth, stomach pains, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle aches and pains in shoulder, neck, shoulders, back, restless tremors, shaking, inability to relax. And there's a second page: avoidance of situations, obsessive or compulsive behavior, distress in social situations, phobic behavior, unrealistic or excessive fear and worry, mind racing or going blank, decreased concentration and memory, indecisiveness, irritability, impatient, anger, confusion, restlessness, feeling of edge, nervous fatigue, sleep disturbance, and vivid dreams. Did I sound like one of those people at the end of a a prescription commercial that just talks really fast and they're like, all of these things could happen to you, including death. That's what this feels like. Like, hey, you may feel anxiety. Okay, what's that feel like? Oh, it feels like everything. Yeah, you're going to feel really tired, but also full of energy, and your heart's going to race. You're probably going to think that you're having a heart attack, which a lot of people do when they experience a panic attack. You also might feel sleepy. You might feel scared of everything, and your body might hurt. Like, how can we pinpoint where we're at on this anxious spectrum? Like, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I'm achy. Like, am I just achy? Or do we need to think about something else? And so thinking about all of these symptoms collectively and thinking about where we draw the line for ourselves of, I'm just struggling today with anxiety, or my whole day has been impacted by this slew of symptoms and I deserve better. So here's a picture. This is from a book called Living with It by Bette Azabeth. It's a really cool book because it talks really simply about anxiety, and there's lots of pictures, and it's a great read for someone who's newly struggling with that. And so I love this depiction of literally feeling all of these things at one time and how debilitated we all can feel when you're feeling this many things at one time. How do you reach out for help? Like, I don't know, I don't feel good. Well, what do you feel like? I don't know, I don't feel good. Like, how would you even just explain this? It's huge. It's so many sensations in your body at one time. And so being able to slow down, understand that these are connected to your mental health so that you can recognize those. So some signs of depression. We know that major depressive disorder in a clinical sense is that it's going to last for 2 weeks, and it affects a person's ability to have emotions, thinking, behavior, ability to work and have satisfying relationships. So we're always going to come back to that live, laugh, love. If these feelings of wellness or unwellness challenge your ability to live, laugh, and love, then we need to seek further. So again, it's normal to feel depressed. We have experienced so much loss and grief over 5 years, over this past year. And I know that I've heard that you all have lost someone very close to you recently. And so feeling sadness and feeling grief and depression are completely normal. But when that depression gets to that 2 to 4 week period and it's just not going away, that's a time to say, maybe this is more than just feeling sadness or traditional grief. And maybe it's time for me to reach out and think of some additional supports here. So some depressive disorders could be categorized as major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, postpartum depression, which is of course after the birth of a child. And if you do know anyone who has had a baby during either the Flint water crisis or COVID, it has changed their experience of carrying and having a baby in a way that is going to impact them and their child for the rest of their lives. Finding out that you carried your baby during a water crisis and nourished your body or your baby's body with something toxic is devastating. And having a baby during COVID where your mate or your support system can't come to the hospital with you to deliver baby, and grandma can't come give baby kisses and visit afterwards, that's devastating. And it's not what people projected to be their experience. So we want to be cautious of that population of people and check in on them as well. And then of course, seasonal depression. Why don't we just drop that in the mix of everything else we're going on? And we're like, hey, and now it's winter time, Michigan. It literally, seasonal affective disorder spells the word sad. And we live in Michigan and we know more about that than many states. And so I can tell you, I did therapy with kids for 10 or 15 years. And every year, February, March, highest hospitalization time of the year, we would have people waiting on beds in psychiatric hospitals because we know that the lack of sunlight, the lack of ability to get out and be around other people and go enjoy our life, that isolation really impacts us. And now here we are in a year, our whole summer was isolation. And now we're swinging into winter and we're staying in isolation. And we need to remember that that's very hard for our brains. Our brains are hardwired to be social, and we're missing out on a lot of that normative stuff. So some signs and symptoms, again, so much stuff. Depression can make you feel sleepy, lack of energy, sleeping too much or too little, or sometimes feeling really sleepy, but not being able to sleep. overeating or loss of appetite, feeling constipated, weight loss or gain, headaches, irregular menstrual cycles, loss of sexual desire, unexplained aches and pains, crying spells, withdrawal from others, neglect of responsibilities, loss of interest in personal experience, loss of motivation, slow movement, use of drugs and alcohol, sadness, anxiety, guilt, anger, mood swings, lack of emotional responsiveness, feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, irritability, frequent self-criticism, self-blame, pessimism, impaired memory and concentration, indecisiveness and confusion, and tendency to believe others see you in a negative light, and thoughts of death and suicide. So just take a minute and think about, if you're feeling all of these things, who would you reach out to? And what would you say? And I would bet that that would be a really hard conversation. One of the symptoms of depression is to not want you to get help. Like if you pictured of like this little evil green monster in your brain who's like, no, don't tell them. They will think you're crazy. They are going to think that you are messed up. Do not tell them. Depression tells you not to get help. So literally one of the hardest symptoms is part of the disease. And so if we notice someone who could be struggling, maybe it's too hard for them to let us know. Maybe we need to ask. I've noticed some things are different, and I'm wondering if you're struggling with some of these things. So some risk factors: a distressing and uncontrollable event. Well, we can multiply that because we've been through a lot. Stress and trauma, difficult childhood. Again, our community has had a lot of trauma. Even before water crisis, there's a lot of trauma that our neighborhood has experienced. Ongoing stress and anxiety, other mental illness. Like I said, that other mental illness makes people more at risk for some struggles during complex times like this. Having a previous episode of depression or anxiety, of course, family history, just a more sensitive emotional nature. It's really hard to be an empath in times where everyone is struggling because that empathic person is like absorbing it from every direction. And it's hard to deflect that. If you're an empath, you're absorbing it. It's coming at you. It's going to find you. Illness that's life-threatening, chronic, or associated with pain. All of these things come along with COVID. COVID came along and just said, like, here, we're going to teach you how to deal with your mental health. And for those who aren't able to deal with it, it's going to compact all the other experiences. Medical conditions, side effects of medication, a recent childbirth, we talked about that, premenstrual changes, lack of exposure to bright light in winter, right there, right? And of course, a chemical neurotransmitter imbalance that when we have ongoing stress and trauma, it causes this chemical in our brain called cortisol. And if you have too much cortisol, it's toxic for your brain, and it can literally change the neural pathways. So if you had an ongoing childhood trauma, you likely have some brain differences based on the stress you felt. And now we're compounding again. So all the stress and cortisol coming into our body from everything that we've experienced over many years can change our neural pathways literally and cause an imbalance. And substance misuse, intoxication, and withdrawal. And we know that feeling this way often leads people more towards substances because substances, of course, feel like a way to escape. They give us that moment of freedom where you're not thinking about how you feel. You're not thinking about the depression or the anxiety. You're not thinking about COVID or the people that we've lost. You're kind of just living in that moment of being intoxicated. But then once that intoxication wears off, you're likely in a much, much, much worse space. And so it's a non-effective way to cope with these big feelings. So how can we be a support to other people? We can practice being non-judgmental. And that might be for all things. Non-judgment might be someone is using substances to cope with their big feelings. And instead of saying like, you know, that's not going to make you any better, or you're just making it worse, or how could you do this? That non-judgment of, I'm imagining you were in a really difficult space in life where you felt like you needed to turn to that. And I'm wondering how I can help you out of that. Being able to give information, and I emailed you some resources and any other resources you need, I'd love to help you find. Being able to give information of, I know you feel alone and scared right now. And sometimes mental health resources are hard to access, and we acknowledge that, and we want to support the community through that. So how can we give information to say, hey, so that you don't have to take 2 hours and call around, I've got this line for you to call. They're going to hook you up. They're going to make sure that you have a clinician or someone to talk to, or be that friend for them to talk to. How can we fill that space for them so that it doesn't require an intensive amount of effort? We could identify others who may be helpful. Like, hey, have you told your mom or your spouse about this? If no, let's talk about what was, addressing that fear of shame and embarrassment. What was really holding you back from talking to mom or spouse? And maybe that's something we can tell them together, because I know it's really hard for you. And exploring activities that might manage symptoms. Karma's going to watch some Looney Tunes, and that's what helps her out. She explored and had to seek things that made her feel more well. And we all have to do that for ourselves. And self-care is not like a big spa day that costs $300. I mean, it could be, but that's never the case for me, or probably for most of us. Self-care has to be a moment of every single day, something that you enjoy or that evokes a calmness in your brain and your body. And so maybe that's just going outside and you leave the kids inside, leave the family inside, and you just take 10 minutes to just breathe. Maybe it's a hot bath or a hot shower. Maybe it's a glass of hot tea, but taking a moment to say, I'm purposefully going to shut off my brain for a moment so that I can tend to my wellness and take a moment for my own self-care. So again, there's that spectrum of I'm having these feelings. There's that line that says, this is probably too much and I need to reach out. So when to seek professional help. So a mental health disorder, remember that definition, it's going to impact a person's thinking, emotional state and behavior, and it disrupts their ability to work, carry out daily activities, and engage in satisfying relationships. And always keep that in your mind, because that's a self-gauge for us of, okay, I can do this, I can use my skills, and I can encourage wellness in my body by doing this, or my skills just aren't working and it's time. So some professional help could, of course, be integrated healthcare. That's emerging in our community, and I love it. So finding a primary care physician who also values mental health and practices both at the same clinic. Your primary care doctor, even if they're not skilled or comfortable talking about these needs, they will absolutely know where to send you. And so leaning on them and feeling comfortable with them to say the hard things of, my mood has not been good, or I feel very low, or I feel very scared. Of course, GHS and our providers, if you're feeling stuck, even if you don't qualify for our general services at GHS, if you give us a call, we will help you find a good fit for you. Anyone calls Access, our Access Center, that's our main front door. You're not going to leave there without someone somewhere to help you out. The Genesee Community Health Center, that's part of GHS. It's across the street from us. And that is an integrated health platform that has both a primary care physician, and they also work closely with our psychiatric side. And so that doctor is able to look at both sides of you, because so often our psychiatrist is over here and our primary care doctor's over here, and they're not friends and they don't talk to each other. So how would they know? And truly, if I'm having constant stomach aches, we probably should have both doctors kind of in on that. And so this is a primary health clinician office that has both sides. The CCBHC is what I talked about when I was here a couple weeks ago. It is our urgent care. It's brand new. And it's that feeling of, I'm having a panic attack or I'm having a mental health crisis, but I am not going to the ER, especially during a medical pandemic. Going to the ER is very scary right now. And so we needed to create, and what a better time to do it, we needed to create a space for people who felt like they were having an emergency, but without needing to go to ER. And doctors in ER are not trained as intensely for mental health crisis. They need to be trained for gunshot wounds and broken bones and all those other things. But if you come in and you're having a panic attack, they want to help you. And it's not their fault, but they're not the experts. If you come to the urgent care, which is all virtual currently, so you can get the help you need over your iPad, over your phone, you're going to be speaking with a mental health professional. And sometimes that might be what sets the tone for all of your future treatment. And then, of course, social workers, peer support specialists, which are individuals who have lived through it, nurses, therapists, psychiatrists, and psychologists. So we'll talk about suicide for a minute, because it's kind of, it would not be well to talk about any mental health concerns without acknowledging suicide as being part of it. And reducing the stigma of thoughts of suicide. I think people who experience suicidal thoughts are afraid to talk about it because it's scary, it's huge, it makes other people uncomfortable. And we don't want them to jump to conclusions that we need to be hospitalized. Karma?
Yeah, something I wanted to share.
Yes.
Thoughts of suicide crossed my mind before.
Mm-hmm.
And that was way back. It's been some years, but that's what got me into therapy.
Thank you for
That
sharing.
moment when it scared the shit out of me. I called my brother in Texas, told him that I felt like I needed a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
He flew to Michigan, stayed with me.
It's a good brother.
So yeah, that's what actually got me into therapy because it scared the shit. Because I know life can be beautiful. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that, and that's what. Thank you for saying that.
Yes, I'm so glad that you shared that with the group, because if we make it seem like suicide is rare and it's only for those people who are on this side of the spectrum, then when we do feel that, it feels so scary and alone and isolated. And so we really have to say, you know, with depression, anxiety, sometimes along comes, or even complex trauma, along comes those feelings of, would it be easier if I didn't live anymore? Would it be easier for these people, or would it be easier for myself? And so we have to normalize that and be comfortable with just asking that question. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. How can we let people know it's okay to tell me if you're thinking about ending your life, and I can handle that for you? So some signs that may attune us to be needing to think about that is if they're threatening to kill or hurt themselves, if they're seeking access to pills, weapons, things like that, or Googling different things, if they're talking or writing about death, dying, and suicide, if you're noticing some feelings of hopelessness, feelings of worthless or lack of purpose, acting recklessly or engaging in risky activities, feeling trapped, increasing drug or alcohol use, and withdrawing from friends and family, demonstrating rage and anger and seeking revenge, and appearing agitated. So again, this is a really exhaustive list. And so instead of trying to memorize all of these different things, I think it's most important to think about, when I notice a difference in someone that I love and care about, it's okay to say that. I've noticed you've been more down. I've noticed you haven't come to our coffee appointments. I've noticed that you don't join when we do this, or you don't text me anymore. Just noticing those differences. So if it is withdrawing, or if it is that feeling of hopelessness, you've already attuned yourself to it. And having a dramatic change in mood is probably the most precise. And I leave that separate because I also want to point out that sometimes that dramatic change in mood seems more positive. You know, if my friend Tina has been struggling for months and months, and then all of a sudden she's like, things are good, we're great, we're going to go have fun, no problem. I would want to know about that too, because studies show that when people make that decision that it has to be done, I must take my life, that there's a sense of relief. And so they usually spend a few hours or part of a day feeling calm. The decision has been made, and this is how I will execute it. And so that drastic change is really important. So some questions that we could ask people after we say, I've noticed that you're experiencing this. We want to ask directly if he or she is suicidal. So the question will be, are you having thoughts of suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? And then we'll go into the plan. And so I want to show, so if I walk up to someone and I say like, oh man, are you thinking about killing yourself? That person's going to be like, oh, no, it's okay. Like, don't be sad. Don't be worried. They're going to immediately switch into that. Like, no, I don't want to add this pressure to you. This is too much for you. I know that you cannot handle that right now. But if I say, are you thinking about killing yourself? It shows a very capable sense. And as a professional, this is something that I've asked many, many, many times, but the first, second, third, fourth, 10th, 15th time felt really weird coming out of my mouth. And so I encourage everyone in this class and in all the classes that we teach to say it when you're in the car alone, just so that when that day comes that you will have to ask someone this question, it doesn't feel so uncomfortable. We want to make sure that our tone and our body language says, I got you. No matter what your answer is, it's going to be okay. And I can carry you through this, versus, oh man, I'm freaking out with you, and I'm not sure if I can handle this or not. So after we ask those questions, then we can talk about, is there a plan? You know, have you decided how you're going to kill yourself? Have you decided when you're going to kill yourself? And have you collected the things you need in order to carry out your plan? Because you might find yourself in a space like with Karma's story she shared, she might have said like, no, I don't.
I think Lisa's frozen. Is she frozen
we
for
lose?
other?
Yeah, I can't hear Lisa anymore.
Yeah,
So froze for a moment there. Are you back?
Am I back?
Yep, there you are. I can hear you. Can others hear you?
So sorry about that.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, so I was just saying, if we're, after we ask the big question of, are you thinking about killing yourself? Then we ask these questions of how, when, and have you gathered all those things? Because then we know, do we need to call an ambulance right now? Do we need to call the police right now? Or can we sit together and call the crisis line? Can we call your primary care physician? What is the level of intensity that we need to respond? Because it's also not a great feeling, you know, if you're just sharing some transient feelings of feeling suicidal, like it just popped into my mind, I wouldn't do it, I don't have a plan, but it's just there and it makes me uncomfortable. If someone said to me, well, then you need to go to the hospital, I would not tell them that ever again. I just wanted to say it out loud so that we could get help, but it doesn't need to be that help. We need to be able to titrate our response to those in need. So we want to keep the person safe. So provide a safety contact number, help the person identify past support. So I would say, you know, we've got you linked up with these services. Who else can help you? Like really encouraging. Let's call your sister. Let's call your friend. People want to help. Well, we got to give them that opportunity to be there. Involve them in decision making. I would never want to help someone and say, this is what you need. You need to do this now. You need to call GHS. You have to do these things. It can be, there are lots of options and places that you can go. We need to do something, but you can choose what it is that we need to do. We can call law enforcement, of course, if people are behaving erratically. We don't ever want anyone to try and be a superhero, of course. Get help first. That will help you and them so that everyone is safe in the end. Don't leave an actively suicidal person alone. And if you're a person who has experienced a close suicide in your life or are triggered by suicide, you do not have to be the one. It is absolutely okay in this crisis and many other crises to say, I want to help you so bad, but I don't think I'm the right person. So let's walk together to find someone who can help you. That's okay. Or I'm not going to leave you alone, but I'm not the one. We're not all great at everything, and that's okay too. So we don't want to use guilt, like you will go to hell or you'll ruin other people's lives. We're doing a lot of outreach to first responders in our community right now, and
Okay, you sound like you froze again.
Yeah, she froze for me as well. Let's see if she'll let's see if she comes back like last time. Uh-oh. Her screen has gone dark for me, so I don't know if she's gonna be back or not. It's weird that she's still able to share even though we can't see her.
I see her, but it's just frozen.
Lucille,
what would you like? I think she's disconnected. So
disconnected.
Maybe
okay. Karma, could you see if you can contact her and then we'll just have some announcements while we wait to hear from her?
Yes, definitely.
I think what happens is, because mine does this sometimes too, if everyone were to shut off their video when she returns, it helps the signal a little bit better. Of course, she might have an intermittent internet. I get that
There
kind
she
of
is.
too.
Oh, she's back. Okay, that's a good idea. So
can you
if
hear me
everyone
now?
can turn off your video so we can get it reconnected.
Hey Lisa, we're gonna all turn off our videos so that your connection can be a little stronger, I think.
Okay.
If it keeps having issues and you can't get back in for whatever reason, maybe you can share the presentation and we can get it out to everybody.
Yes, the presentation was attached to the email that I sent yesterday that also had some other handouts, flyers, resources, things like that. I apologize for that. Okay. All right, so we're talking about keeping the person safe and not leaving them alone, not guilting them, and we're not going to agree to keep anything secret. Whether it's a child or an adult, let's be very transparent from the very beginning. I am here to help you, and I will need to reach out for help if and when you want to hurt yourself or someone else. I will never promise to keep that a secret for you because it wouldn't be what's best for that person. So then, of course, if we add COVID-19 in, let's talk about some specific stuff. People during the pandemic have reported immense amounts of stress, anxiety, fear, sadness, loneliness. And then we know that people with existing mental health concerns who have been isolated and surrounded by a lot of this chaos are going to have exacerbated symptoms. So we've seen a major increase of stress and anxiety during the pandemic. And I've heard a lot of people say that the next pandemic will be a mental health pandemic. And I think the biggest concern is that we have this huge population of people who have never experienced a level of unwellness as far as mental health. And here they are being forced to cope with things that they've never had the skills to cope with. And so it's kind of like we need to do, hey, get your vaccination, and what are you going to do to take care of yourself today? But we're not yet in a place where our society completely recognizes mental health. So we have to do that. Now it's up to communities and local people to say like, hey, I'm glad you're doing well and you're healthy, you don't have COVID, but also let's talk about the mental health as well. So really limiting news intake. I've, depending on how many life crises you've lived through as far as political things and things that touch the news, some people have probably never seen news happen the way it is now. And let's not forget the political state of things and well, I don't want to get too political, but I know that everyone understands that this is traumatizing as well on many, many, many layers. And so at what point do you say to yourself, like, I have to shut off the TV? Or for me, it was Facebook, like eliminating Facebook for 6 months out of the pandemic. Like, this is chaos. And when people have different views than me, I'm mad. And that anger fuels a lot of feelings for me. So we're going to limit scrolling on social media. Think about some more healthy things like reading a book or going for a walk or doing some art projects. Staying connected. The state of Michigan has a lot of new grants and programs for people who aren't familiar with technology to become more familiar with technology, because right now that's how we're staying connected. I haven't seen my parents since March, and thank goodness for iPads and iPhones and FaceTime. And it's not the same, but it helps. And for people who are immensely isolated, for our elderly 65 and over population who have been told to stay in and stay safe, we have to have some sort of connection. They need a connection in order to be well. So in this think positive thoughts, okay, think positive thoughts is not easy, it's not simple, but we have this unique experience of identifying a trauma while we're in the middle of it. And our community has done that before. We identified the water crisis and we're still in it. So managing trauma while it's happening can be different. It's hard. Managing thoughts, feelings, and emotions during COVID is hard. But because we're in the middle of it, it wasn't like this single event that happened a couple days ago and now we're stuck with these feelings. We were in the middle of it. So how can we reshape our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to be more positive? If we live in the yuck, when we're almost been here a year, then at the end of the year, we're going to have to filter through all that yuck. Or we start the hard work now and we start processing now and changing our thoughts, because our thoughts impact our feelings, which impact our behaviors. So that means that we have to have self-care, a meaningful activity every single day. That's you saying, I choose me. I deserve to feel better. I deserve this 5 minutes to take care of myself, whatever that may be. And I work with lots and lots of families who are like, there's no time and I have kids and I have to go to work and I have to do these things. There's time. There is time for 5 minutes. There has to be time for 5 minutes. There has to be. If you are a diabetic individual, you make time to make sure that you have your insulin. This is no different. Our wellness is at risk. We must make time. Keep your routine. Like, I've been at home, working from home. It's not my jam. I love people. I would love to be at work. But if I don't keep a routine, I have to wake up every morning, get in the shower, do all the normal things, because otherwise I'm on day 6 in yoga pants. And my husband's like, hey, You gonna get up and do something? So for me, it's keeping routine. I know that about myself. Having a healthy lifestyle, good sleeping patterns, exercise, healthy diet, visiting your doctor. So again, when we're in this stress, our body's saying, we're in a pandemic. I can eat whatever I want. Or maybe that's just me. Like this is so scary. And now's not the time to eat healthy and exercise. Now's the time just to take care of ourselves. Yes, and when eating or lack of exercise becomes something that is a hindrance to your body, then it is an unhealthy coping mechanism. And we have to think of something else instead. If comfort food is not a dangerous thing for you, that would be okay. But we have to remember both sides of that. It's been a year. So if the month of March and April, you ate very, very badly, and then you were like, okay, this is still going, it would be okay. But now if we're a year in and people are still using unhealthy coping mechanisms, what's that going to look like when the veil lifts and we can go out and now we have to backpedal a year because we were using drugs or eating too much? Avoiding substances, practicing mindfulness. There's like 1,000 apps. There's lots of books. You could use YouTube videos. There's so many ways to do it. And I know at the beginning of the mindfulness, like 10 years ago in the community, it felt like this very like hippy dippy voodoo, like, oh, I'm going to meditate. But really, call it what you want to call it. Mindfulness is different for everyone else. What we just want everyone to do is find a space in life to say, I can get a thermometer gauge on how I feel in any moment at any time. And we teach ourselves that through being mindful. So we could just say, stop. Okay, I'm at like a 6 on the stress level right now. Okay, I feel it, I experience it, and I move on. So that if I ever get so stressed that I'm like, I'm at a 10, I want to recognize that long before I get to that space. So mindfulness is a technique to teach yourself how to have a gauge all the time, because then we can do some preventative measures for our wellness as well. And of course, if you're a person of spirituality and faith, then continuing to lean on that and seeking guidance from your faith leaders, instead of allowing a lot of those symptoms to push back and isolate yourself. Resources and all of this was emailed as well. Our CERT is our community response team, and that's 24 hours. And so it's sometimes instead of taking someone to ER, this community response team will come to their home, which makes it much more comfortable and more able to talk freely. And then our crisis lines, both the text line and that 257-3740, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can also deploy other services. So if you call our local crisis line and you're talking to someone local, and they're like, or even we dispatched it at night to a different company. If that company says like, hey, we really need to send someone to your house, they will automatically connect you to that service so that you're not left alone trying to figure all of that out. The free GHS trainings, that's brand new. And I'm going to talk about those a little bit here right before we wrap up. And then, of course, there are lots of national programs, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, NAMI, SAMHSA, and My Strength. Those are all corporations who eat, sleep, and breathe, supporting people's mental health. So, if you find yourself in a space, you could always Google those, check out their website, see the kind of work that they're doing. And I think just reading about that kind of stuff normalizes it. On a national level, you're like, yeah, it's not me. We're all feeling this. Okay, so Genesee Health System did get this beautiful grant from Flint Recast. They're, of course, doing such amazing things for our community. And so we thought to ourselves, we have been serving our consumers. We've got a hold. We're doing tele. We've worked really well to continue to provide our services during this challenging time. What we want to do now is service our community and those people that we haven't been able to help before. So we are going to offer some psychoeducation classes every single week ongoing from February 1st through the end of the year. And so they'll be marketed on our website and you can sign up and join them as a Zoom class. So the first one is mental health first aid. If you haven't taken mental health first aid, I absolutely recommend it. Virtually, it's not as fun because it's a long time to be on a virtual platform. But once we get back in the classroom, it's free. It's the whole day. It's fun. It's exciting. There's lots of activities. And I promise you will leave there with so much more knowledge about signs and symptoms, risk factors of mental health. We talk a lot about crisis situations. We role play asking the question. We role play having some delusions, hallucinations. It's a really rich experience. And then you get a certificate. It has CEUs. You get a free book, the whole class. It's amazing. We also are going to provide psychological first aid twice a month, and it's an initial disaster response intervention. So this will give you the skills to gauge wellness on yourself and also those around you, recognizing that we are in the middle of 2 disasters and we need to, well, maybe 3, and we need to truly arm people with the skills to keep themselves and other people as well. Question, Persuade, and Refer is a suicide prevention training. And so it teaches people how to recognize the signs of suicide, offer hope, and then refer them to help. Living Works is a brand new suicide training. This is the most profound evidence-based practice for suicide prevention. It is out of Canada. It's an expensive training, but Recast has allowed us to buy seats for it. So we have 100 seats, 100 people in the community will get to participate, and hopefully we can keep this ongoing in this free training that otherwise costs lots of money. And so we will post those classes on the website as well so that people can join in them. And it is a very collective program on suicide prevention and then resources as well. So I know that was a lot of information really fast. And I hope that you all took away today some signs and symptoms for yourself and for others, but also knowing that we could be your resource hub, so reaching out to us and using GHS as a safe place. And we haven't always had that name in the community. Mental health services are hard. But we are here to help. We are here to support every single person in our community. Any questions specifically? I know it was a lot.
Let me ask you this one, Lisa.
Yeah.
I have a friend who, honestly, she's single. She's a little older. She lost her son here a couple of years ago, and I really do believe she could probably use. My guess is, and I'm not a doctor, and I have no particular expertise in this, but I do believe she's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder on a number of levels. What would you suggest would be a way to kind of ease her into thinking that maybe she needs to get, to talk to somebody? Because we've kind of discussed it, and it's a difficult conversation to have. But how can you say, I think this can help you?
Yeah. So you said you've discussed it before. So has she been open at all when you've discussed it?
Well, she knows she's depressed and she knows these things, but she's got some issues with transportation, and I'd be happy to take her down there. I mean, we're not that far away. We're here on the Near East Side. So what would be a good trigger point to say, yeah, hey, I probably could use this?
Yeah, so I would probably help her find the resource that best fits her, because like I said, that part of depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder is that part of your brain telling you like it's too much. Don't reach out. It's going to be exhausting. You're going to feel just so tired. So just don't bother. So if you could help her kind of do that legwork of, hey, I heard that GHS, you can just call them and talk about this. We could talk about it together. I could support you through that. Then maybe that'll kind of take away some of that legwork at the beginning that feels so exhausting. And even if the first time you mention it, your friend isn't super receptive, then I would just keep it as a regular conversation. Or even after trainings like this, like, hey, I just saw this training and the trainer was mentioning some of these things, and I really think that this might be something you could benefit from. Just kind of bringing it back.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you
you're
very much.
welcome.
Cheryl?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I use a lot of, I try to use a lot of humorous strategies when I feel anxious. I started doing this one when I first started having hot flashes, because it was like an instant anxiety attack. So I was working with kids at the time, and so I used the football timeout with my hands signal, and they all knew that meant we were taking a few moments to relax, talk to each other, catch up, doing whatever, and then we would resume when my anxiety level came back down, which was probably in a minute or so away. I still use that for myself, even if nobody else is in the room, when I start feeling anxious and I can feel it creeping up from my toes, and I give myself the timeout signal.
Mhm.
And that means a halt in whatever I'm thinking or doing, and turning to something else that catches my attention. Not a chore necessarily, but even if it's sitting down for a few minutes in front of a program I want to see, or picking up a magazine to read a
Mhm.
page.
Yeah, just kind of changing your scenery for a minute. That's
Yeah.
a perfect example, Cheryl, because what you're explaining is that 4 seconds between I'm feeling great and oh my gosh, something is wrong. And if you don't notice that and you don't give that time out, then all of a sudden you're at a 10 and you might have been screaming at the kids instead. It might have been, you're acting out, versus, whoa, I need a minute. That 4 seconds that taught your body and your brain to say, whoop, this is it. Time out. That's that space that we all need to find within ourselves and help other people find it as well.
And that also, because it's done somewhat in jest, other people get a kick out of that. And so they immediately step back or laugh, and the level comes down for everybody momentarily. So that's one of my many.
I love that. And it's a universal signal. Like everybody knows what that means. So you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. Thank you for sharing. That's a good example.
You're welcome.
Mhm. Any other questions, comments? I can't see everyone all at once, so it's hard.
This is beautiful. This was beautiful. I so appreciate you, Lisa.
Mhm.
I appreciate everyone here, everyone that was sharing in the chat, and I see some of the looks on some of the faces, and I saw looks of recognition. We are a community, a beautiful community. I love Flint, and when I used to post that on my Facebook page every now and then, and I'm not sure if people really get what I'm talking about. It's the people in our community that make our community. I mean, I know we fight with each other all the time, but what I love about it is we're a family. We may fight with each other, but when somebody from outside come in and try to fight with us, hey, we put a stop to that immediately.
Absolutely.
I appreciate all of you.
I completely agree. And this community is so resilient. I get asked all the time, we'll join a radio show, things like that. They're like, what have you seen? You know, Flint's really struggling and they've been through so much. Like, sure, but Flint is strong. Are you kidding me? Flint is so resilient. They bounce right back. We're all still here, still communicating. People support each other. It's still a beautiful community. So instead of identifying all the tragedy, I'm like, you should see how awesome it is. You should see how strong they are. Like really letting the world know we're still here.
Right.
I just wanted to say thank you to Lisa for the presentation. I think it's really important, and I've tried to be more open about things myself just because of what you were talking about with the stigmas. And so, yeah, I really just appreciate you coming and speaking.
Thank you for saying that. And anytime, GHS is here to do conversations with any community group or anything that you need, you let us know, reach out to myself. Karma knows how to get a hold of Renee, who is our PR person. We want to be everywhere so that we can have these conversations. So thank you for having me and finding the importance in this conversation as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Luz?
Right. I know I've definitely found the whole thing very beneficial. We just have a few individuals that needs to share some information. Lieutenant Jeff, are you still on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you had some stuff you wanted to share, and thank you for getting on that right away.
Yeah.
About the equinox.
Yeah, real quick, was he wearing glasses, like eyeglasses or anything? Do you know?
Renetta?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I just got a question from one of the troops that's out there and wanted to know. So I was trying to get that out real quick. Yeah, I won't take up much of your time. I just want to say this. Thank you for letting me participate here today. I know you don't know a lot about me. I came in to the post here in Flint during the COVID. So it's been a real struggle trying to get to know and build relationships with everybody. But I'm trying very hard to get engaged with the community, and even so with the neighborhood. So I appreciate being able to be here today. Just want you to know one thing about me, and this is my philosophy when it comes to policing. If we police in a community, we're part of that community. Your input, communication, and cooperation is obviously is crucial. It's critical. I'm going to ask this. So in the meantime, if any of you have any events, meetings, anything where you think it would be a benefit to have law enforcement engaged in conversations, anything, I'm going to ask that you please reach out to me and include me if you can and if you're willing. These are trying times for everybody, and that includes in law enforcement. We're trying very hard. So I just ask that you embrace me, show me a little bit of love, because that's exactly what I'm set out to do with all of you. So if you could do that, I would appreciate that. Obviously, we have issues with the COVID, so we can't all meet each other in person, which I think it's a real bummer, because I think once we have that ability to meet and greet and get to know one another, it'll be a great thing, and you'll see what I'm about. Because one thing about this COVID thing, I'm a hugger. I like to see people in person, and I like hugs. So this is like really difficult for me. So again, thank you. I did include some of my information under the chat. And if you're on a phone today and don't have the ability to get to that, if you reach out to some of the people out here today that you're familiar with, you can get that information from them. But if you need anything, please reach out to me. I appreciate all of you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so we have Gary Jones from the governor's office wanted to share. Then we'll have Mayor Neely, and then we'll like to do a moment of silence at the end of the meeting. Hopefully everyone can hang on. All right, Mr. Gary, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Just real briefly, so we got this news yesterday, so it's fairly recent, but it's really important. House Appropriations Chair Thomas Albert, so he'll be the new incoming Appropriations Chair in the House. He said that the governor must take more steps towards reopening the economy before the legislature can have meaningful conversations about next steps in allocating federal COVID relief funds. So essentially, he's willing to hold Michigan taxpayer dollars for COVID testing, vaccine distribution, education, keeping people in their homes, childcare, and feeding hungry kids. We believe this is reckless and dangerous, especially with the new variant of the virus in the United States that spreads even faster. The governor has rightfully made it very clear that she's not going to negotiate away Michiganders' public health. We don't consider this to be a game. It's a deadly pandemic that has killed more than 13,000 people in our state. Republicans must end partisan games and work with the governor in order to get this done. And just to give you a more clear picture of what's at stake here, this is the federal funding that he's referring to, that he's willing to withhold. So the state of Michigan is posed to receive over $100 million in vaccine funding from the federal bill, and over $565 million to support testing, tracing, and COVID mitigation efforts. The bill also includes $650 million to address eviction diversion and rental assistance needs, and millions to deploy more broadband to help our students learn and business recover from the economic impacts that they face during the pandemic. It also includes roughly $125 million in emergency education relief dollars to help our students and schools recover, in addition to emergency child care funds that are closer to $187 million. Also, real briefly, just a couple more things. The governor and a coalition of governors recently urged the federal government to release vaccines to states. So this is our governor, the governor of California, Kansas, Illinois, Minnesota, New York, Wisconsin, as well as Washington, who sent a letter to the Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar, and Operation Warp Speed Chief Operating Officer General Gustav Perna, requesting that the federal government distribute the millions of safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine doses that are currently being held back by the Trump administration. According to publicly reported information, the federal government currently has upwards of 50% of currently produced vaccines held back by the administration for reasons unknown. Also recently, we made this announcement. I pushed this out to my email list, so if you need me to add you to that list, feel free to include your email in the chat. But the governor will deliver her third State of the State address January 27th. She will deliver this address at 7 p.m. on January 27th. And due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the State of the State address will be held virtually in compliance with the CDC and State of Michigan's best practices.
Okay.
Hey, Luz, one
Yes, ma'am.
second before Mayor goes up. I know we're going over the 11:30 mark. We've gone over, and that tends to happen sometimes when we have topics that are just that important. So thank you for being patient with us. You're appreciated.
Okay. Thanks, Gary. Mayor Neely, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready. Very quickly, I won't take you over the 11:30 hour too much more, but I want to congratulate all of you guys for doing a fantastic job for our neighborhoods and our city. Welcome into the new year, and we're going to be moving forward. Hopefully, I'm not sure what Gary touched on this, but hopefully vaccines will be made more readily available for the common people that's under 65 years of age, which I do fit into that particular category. And we'll make sure that we'll do everything possible to make sure that we get every person that's willing to take the vaccination to better safeguard our residents in our city. We want to make sure we do that. And also, I want people to know the walk-up window now at the city of Flint is open and available till 5 p.m. It previously was till 4 p.m. So now it's available to 5 p.m. to better accommodate people at our for customer service type of activities. And then also this Friday, in recognition of the Martin Luther King Day celebration, we'll be honoring 5 individuals with the highest award that I can give to a key to the city for their lifelong achievement awards for the empowerment and improvement of our community. Dr. Lawrence was one of the recipients. Pastor Randolph is a recipient. Chris Miller just recently retired from Bishop Airport as the chief of police, and also our great friend Cheryl Thompson just recently retired from the Department of Health and Human Services. And so we'll be doing that event, and more news will be coming out about that, and we'll send a communication out. But we definitely want to recognize all of the great people for the efforts that they're doing, much like yourselves. And God bless you guys. So that was quick.
Thank you. All right. Chris had wanted to share, do an update on our election. You ready, Chris?
I did.
You on the agenda, huh?
I'm on the agenda. Oh, well, I wasn't really thinking about giving an update on the election. I think we all pretty much know what's going on there. I just want to, tell people that what's going to happen is going to happen, and just try to, in dealing with our mindfulness and our mental health, to not try to get too angry or too upset about what may or may not occur. I think we just kind of have to live every single day and every single second in this situation as best as we can, and try not to read too much into it. Other than that, I really don't have much else to say about that. I will mention, as long as I'm on, the reminder of how to record the chat. If you go into your chat window, in the bottom right hand corner of that, you will find 3 little dots. This is mostly for the people who may be new to our calls. You click on the 3 little dots down there in the little lower right hand corner. You'll have a window come up that says Save Chat. It will then save it to your computer in a folder called Zoom. So you can go back and gather any information you may have missed or you didn't quite write down at the time it was mentioned. You can go back and record it then. Also, of course, Talia will have minutes of this meeting probably within 10 minutes of the meeting. She's really that good, and we'll send those back out too.
All right, thank you. And thanks for the reminder about the chat. Okay, Teresa.
Well, before you go, I forgot to mention, we have the what we were talking about is the election update of FNU. I totally blanked there. That must have been my PTSD, right? Anyway, it is January. We're supposed to have an election. We ended up with no nominations for president and treasurer, and those are the only two positions that were open. Both, Karma is the president. She has agreed that she will stay on as president if everyone is amenable to that, and Mr. Fry has also agreed, quite honestly, to remain as treasurer. For a couple of reasons. One is that it has become, during these days of COVID and other things, it's been incredibly difficult to get people together to change names and numbers on bank accounts, and it's just easier for me to stay there, and I don't mind doing the job. So I guess what we could kind of do here, if you'd like, we could have an election by acclamation, and I can't exactly say everyone who's in favor say aye, but if you want to throw that in the chat, I think we can probably take care of this right away. Any objections? Seeing none, I move to by acclamation re-elect Chris Fry and as treasurer and Karma Lewis as president.
Aye.
Seeing no objections, I guess that's what we're going to do. Congratulations to Karma, and I'll take whatever congratulations we can get. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Chris. All right, Teresa, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Chris, and congratulations, everybody. Alrighty, so thank you everybody who was able to stay on the call for this morning. It was a really, it was a longer meeting than normal, but obviously it was a really good meeting. There's 31 people on the call. We started with maybe 15. So, everybody on here, it's just beautiful to me to see everybody on here. So I just wanted to have us close with a moment of silence today. A lot of us have struggled with many of the traumas that we've been facing. And I know that many of you know Miss Danielle Brown, who just recently passed away from COVID. And she was a new friend of mine. I met her last year and started to become friends. And so I just wanted to maybe have a moment of silence for Danielle Brown, who was at the Literacy Network, and many of the others that we've lost to COVID and to all the other traumas that we've had in our community. So if we could just have a 30-second moment of silence, that would mean a lot to me. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, Teresa. Okay, so final thoughts. We'll be adjourning the meeting. Next meeting will be Saturday, February 6th. Looking forward to seeing everyone again. And I believe Chris is going to send out that PowerPoint with the minutes. And so the other information that was shared by Lisa.
And I'll get the recording to Chris as soon as it's processed on the Zoom.
I have a question for Chris.
Okay, go ahead.
You still have the deadline for the newspaper?
The newspaper
15th?
deadline is always the 15th of the month.
Okay, good.
I give you a little bit of leeway, but generally it's the 15th.
Good, thank you.
You're most welcome.
All right, well, thanks everyone. Don't forget to save your chat. And like Talia said, you'll have your minutes. The minutes will be sent out shortly.
She's at 7 minutes.
7 minutes, very good.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all. Great meeting.